Did the Red Sea actually divide? What of the Marah water that turned from bitter to sweet? What led to the praise and worship songs sung by Moses and the Israelites? Welcome to your favorite channel, Silent Scrolls, where silence speaks and stories echo through time. The Night of Fear. The desert was quiet, too quiet. Only the whisper of the wind against the sands carried across the night. The people of Israel stood in uneasy silence, their campfires flickering faintly. Before them stretched the endless waters of the Red Sea. Behind them, in the distance, dust rose, a storm of iron and chariots. Pharaoh's army was coming. Panic spread like wildfire. Mothers clutched their children. Men looked at each other with hollow eyes. They had followed Moses out of Egypt with songs of freedom, but now the shadow of death seemed to chase them. "Why did you bring us here to die, Moses?" Voices cried out. "Were there not graves enough in Egypt? Better to have served Pharaoh than to perish here in the wilderness." The fear was real. After generations of slavery, courage does not come easily. But then a figure rose, his staff in hand, his face steady though aged. Moses. His voice broke the chaos. "Fear ye not. Stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace." Exodus 4:13-14. Stillness. Against the roar of fear, Moses spoke of stillness. The night deepened. The pillar of cloud that had guided them since Egypt now moved. It shifted, descending between Israel and Pharaoh's advancing army. On one side, the cloud was thick darkness, blinding the Egyptians. On the other side, it glowed with a strange light, illuminating Israel's camp. God himself stood guard. And then came the command, the whisper of heaven to Moses. "Lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it." Moses lifted his staff. The sea before him groaned. The wind began to howl, rising into a violent storm. All night long, the east wind blew, whipping the waters into walls. Slowly, impossibly, the sea began to split. Waters were heaped like towering walls on the left and the right, and in between stretched a dry path, an open road through the deep. The people gasped. Some fell to their knees, some covered their mouths in awe. Could it be? Could they walk through the heart of the sea? The silence broke with the cry, "Forward, the Lord has opened the way." And so the people stepped in, one by one. Families holding hands, children pressing close, old men leaning on their staffs, they walked into the impossible. The Red Sea reminds us, sometimes God doesn't remove the obstacle, he makes a way through it. Your impossible sea may be fear, debt, sickness, or shame. But what looks like the end is only the stage for God's glory. The path through the sea. The wind howled like a living thing, tugging at garments and whipping sand into the air. Yet the path before Israel stood firm, walls of water rising high on either side, shimmering in the pale light of the pillar of fire. The people moved, step by step, across the seabed. The ground beneath their feet was dry, though moments before it had been the floor of the ocean. Each step was a miracle. Each breath was heavy with awe. Children clutched their mothers' robes. Fathers carried the weak on their shoulders. The air smelled of salt and storm. Some looked left and right, terrified by the watery walls that towered over them. Could they collapse? Would the sea swallow them whole? Yet the road held. The Lord held it. Behind them, the Egyptians pressed forward. Pharaoh had not relented. His pride was too fierce, his rage too consuming. At his command, the chariots thundered into the seabed. Horses whinnied, wheels cut into the path, and soldiers roared as they pursued the people of God. The sight was dreadful. Israelites could hear the pounding hooves echoing through the walls of water. Fear rose again in their throats. But then, something strange began to happen. The wheels of the Egyptian chariots grew heavy, sand clung to them, axles broke, horses stumbled. The warriors who once seemed unstoppable now shouted in panic. Confusion spread among the ranks. "This is the hand of Israel's God." Some cried, "Let us turn back." But it was too late. The sea itself waited for the command. Moses, still standing at the edge of the waters, watched the last of Israel step onto safe ground. Then came the word of the Lord, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the waters may return upon the Egyptians." With solemn strength, Moses lifted his staff once more. The wind ceased, the roar changed, the walls of water began to collapse. With a thunderous crash, the sea surged back into place, engulfing the chariots, the horses, and the soldiers. Pharaoh's proud army, the terror of Egypt, was swallowed by the deep. The morning sun rose, casting light upon the waters. And there, along the shore, the bodies of Egypt's warriors lay scattered, lifeless. Not one had survived. Israel stood stunned. They had seen it with their own eyes, the Lord fighting for them, the sea itself obeying his voice. For a moment, silence hung heavy, and then the silence broke into song. Miriam, the sister of Moses, took a tambourine in her hand. The women joined her in dancing. The people lifted their voices together. "I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation." The desert shook with their praise. For the first time, a nation once enslaved lifted its head not as slaves, but as free men and women of God. Marah and the test of faith. The sea was behind them now. Egypt's might had been broken. The people were free at last. But freedom brought new challenges. The wilderness stretched out before them, vast, dry, and merciless. The same voices that had sung with joy at the shore of the Red Sea soon turned to murmurs of complaint. The desert was not a place for the faint of heart. For 3 days they walked under the blazing sun. The sand burned beneath their feet, and their lips cracked with thirst. Children cried for water. Mothers stumbled under the weight of their little ones. The men pressed forward in silence, their strength failing with every step. Finally, a cry went up. Water. Ahead lay a pool. Relief swept through the camp like a fresh wind. They ran desperate, cups and hands reaching. But when they drank, the taste was bitter, foul, and undrinkable. A groan rose from the people. Frustration turned quickly into anger. "What shall we drink?" they cried against Moses. "Did you bring us out here to die?" The joy of victory had vanished. Fear and bitterness spread through the camp as fast as thirst. Moses, weary but steadfast, did what he had always done. He turned to the Lord. He prayed, and the Lord showed him a tree. Moses cut the branch and cast it into the waters. To the people's astonishment, the water became sweet, pure, and refreshing. They drank deeply, quenching their thirst. Children splashed, mothers smiled again, and fathers lifted their faces to the heavens. Once more, God had provided. But this moment was more than relief. It was a test. The Lord spoke, "If you diligently heed my voice and do what is right in my sight, I will put none of the diseases on you which I brought on the Egyptians. For I am the Lord who heals you." This was no ordinary provision. It was a revelation. The people learned that the same God who could part seas could also heal, provide, and guide in the wilderness. He was not only the God of mighty miracles, but also the God who cared for their daily needs. From Mara, the people moved on and came to Elim. There, under the shade of 70 palm trees and beside 12 springs of water, they rested. The desert journey was far from over, but the lesson was clear. Victory at sea was not the end. Trust would be tested again and again. In the wilderness, the people would learn that freedom was not about leaving Egypt. It was about learning to depend on God. Life is not just about escaping bondage, it's about learning trust. God doesn't only deliver you from the Red Sea moments, He also heals your Mara of bitterness. The same God who makes a way through deep waters will transform your sorrow into sweetness. Reflection on this story. The Red Sea was not just a miracle for Israel, it is a mirror for us. It reminds us that when fear surrounds us and there is no way forward, God can make a way where there is none. But the story does not end at the shore. The wilderness still awaits. Deliverance is only the beginning. Discipleship is the journey. So remember this: the God who parts seas is the same God who walks with you through deserts. Trust Him not only in your breakthroughs, but also in your dry places. For the same God who divided the waters is the God who still divides despair with hope and bitterness with healing. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded of God's power. Comment, subscribe, and join us again on Silent Scrolls, where silence speaks and truth travels through time. For more details, you can read this story in the Holy Bible, Exodus chapters 14 and 15. Remain blessed.